talking about, the only thing really that needs to be on camera, well, I don't know what you want to do about slides and stuff.
Okay. There used to be a thing.
Well, it looks like you've got one that's focused on the screen there.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know how to play back. Let's try it. Where does it? I wish I knew this better.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, wait. Can I just have your mic? I'll come right back.
How are the bagels? Good? Okay. Were there enough bots this morning?
Hey, Cantor J, don't, as my husband, the attorney, would tell me, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We are in the season right before the High Holy Days. And if we were to read Haftarah, they're all Haftarot of consolation. So I just want to say I'm profoundly sorry. Special thanks to Linda Alexander and Steve Wasserman for also providing for this morning's. So you should sit where you can see the screen. And really, I guess with no further ado, because everybody knows that Cantor J. O'Brien, applause. Rabbi Ike Serotta.
This is in the spirit of community and teamwork. This is very much a collaboration. Rabbi Ike is not only running our technology, but he's going to be helping to tell the story of this incredible creative person, this incredible performer, songwriter, poet. Just a show of hands, would anyone describe themselves as a big Lou Reed fan? Okay, so we got some folks. Okay.
A handful of those. If you're a Cantor J. O'Brien fan, let's raise your hand for that. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right.
The reason why I ask is, what an amazing thing to come to synagogue and to learn the life story of a Jewish American who, in some ways really changed the way that we listen to popular music, and especially this musical idiom of rock and roll. So, for people who don't know a little bit about Lou Reed, his music really has an edge. It really does represent the grit and kind of the sort of assertiveness of rock and roll. So we're going to start off with a lot of, kind of context and certainly to kind of familiarize people who don't really know who Lou Reed is and why he is a person whose life story is really important to tell. And then we're going to get into interspersed through the program some kind of live music. And I just want to assure you that it's an interesting mix of music. Some of it's very tuneful. Some of it's, again, is very kind of in-your-face rock and roll music. So if one song doesn't really resonate, I encourage you to keep your ears open because it's Lou Reed is an incredible artist of a lot of different musical styles and varieties. So with that, Rabbi Ike, you want to take things?
All set. So his name as a singer-songwriter might not be quite as familiar as Paul Simon or Bob Dylan, but Lou Reed is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame not once, but twice. He was actually enshrined with his band, the Velvet Underground. They played together for the first time in 3 decades at that moment. And they actually, unlike other bands who go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they wrote a new song for the occasion and played it for the first time that evening. He was inducted again as a solo artist. His friend Patti Smith had the honor of inducting him posthumously.
Hello, everybody. On October 27, 2013, I was at Rockaway Beach, and I got the message that Lou Reed had passed. It was a solitary moment. I was by myself, and I thought of him by the ocean, and I got on the subway back to New York City. It was a 55-minute ride, and in that 55 minutes, when I returned to New York City, it was as if the whole city had transformed. People were crying on the streets. I could hear Lou's voice coming from every cafe. Everyone was playing his music. Everyone was walking around dumbfounded. Strangers came up to me and hugged me. The boy who made me coffee was crying. It was the whole city was more.
So how did Louis Allen Rabinowitz become Lou Reed, beloved in New York City? He was born in 1942 at Bethel Hospital, in a spot where Brooklyn meets Long Island. His parents were Sidney Rabinowitz, who had dreams of being a writer himself before settling in as a CPA and changing the family's name to Reed. His mother was Toby Futterman, who, among other things, won a beauty contest as Queen of the Stenographers. She always claimed that it was because the really pretty girl didn't show up that day for work. Louis was a child of immigrants. He had his bar mitzvah in 1955. Sadly, no tape of Lou Reed chanting Torah exists. Late in his life, he made a short movie of his interview with his cousin. The name of the movie is Red Shirley, and here's the preview.
How did you get here?
What do you mean how?
How?
Like all the immigrants get. Right? I came here when I was 19. I had to learn a trade. I worked 48 hours a week for $6. It wasn't an easy life for a new immigrant, for a young person.
You're a seamstress again now.
Yeah,
And you worked how long at the machine?
47 years.
Wait a minute. You worked for 47 years at that machine.
At a machine, not at that machine. We changed jobs. I used to expose the conditions in the shop. We took up the fight for the trade. They called me the Red Shirley. Okay, that's all.
So that was the milieu that Lou grew up in. He was born and raised with this sense of otherness, the child of immigrants, being Jewish, being progressive like Red Shirley. And honestly, his sexuality did not conform to what was acceptable back in the 1950s. But Lou Reed was already in love with rock and roll at that time. He was a fan of Fats Domino, you can see on the left, Little Richard in the middle. It was actually Ozzie and Harriet and Ricky Nelson that gave him the idea that he could actually be a musician. At his high school talent show, he played a song by Little Richard. Another guy who was going by the name of Bobby Zimmerman did the same thing at his own high school talent show in another part of the country at about the same time. A parent in the audience, a guy named Bob Shad, brought Lou into a recording studio for the first time, and he and one of his friends from school recorded their first single. Its lack of success may have prepared him for the lack of success that followed him most of his recording career. Lou went to NYU in 1959. It was a letdown for kids in those days to go to NYU. The main campus of NYU at that time was actually in the Bronx. And Lou spent his freshman year confronting his sexuality there. He came home after freshman year and received electric shock therapy to redirect his sexual desire. Another example of his outsider voice that he retained throughout his life. Lou actually transferred then to the University of Syracuse, where he met the Jewish poet Delmore Schwartz, who was on faculty there. Delmore Schwartz was also a Jewish American, children of immigrants, grew up in New York, so they were kindred spirits in many ways, and Delmore became the first real dramatic influence on Lou's life. He taught him to write because you have to. Don't write for the audience, and that may explain some of Lou's ambivalence about fame throughout his career. And you can see Delmore's quote there that Lou remembered long after, right? So after graduation, Lou moves to New York City, the milieu for all of his music. For someone who was not particularly connected to Jewish roots, it's interesting to note that most of the people that Lou seems to have been hanging out with in New York were all Jews. And here they are, a number of them. You can see down in the lower right-hand corner, that's Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan saw Lou Reed shows before he went electric. It might explain some things about Dylan's career. Perhaps that's where he saw that poetry and rock music could coexist. Allen Ginsberg, just to the left of Dylan, was of course among the Beat poets and helped inspire Lou in his quest to bring poetry to music. And then next to him in the middle of that small picture is Al Aronowitz, who became the first manager. And actually when he went to sign Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground to a recording contract, he had to walk up 5 flights of a 5-floor walk-up to the apartment where they were all living and practicing. And in the car were the couple above him in that picture. That's Carole King and Jerry Goffin. So they were among the first fans of Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. Down in the left-hand corner, that small picture is a woman named Florence Greenberg. She was the president of Scepter Records, which was responsible for songs like Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles, the Shirelles' first #1 hit that was written by Carole King. And she owned Scepter Studios, where the song Louie Louie by the Kingsmen was recorded. And it's where the Velvet Underground would record their first album. And then the other 3 women in this picture are Electra, not her real first name, Electra Lobel, Barbara Rubin, and Naomi Levine, who were all actresses in New York and appeared in films made by Andy Warhol in those early days. It was Barbara Rubin, who's up in the right-hand corner. Actually, if you're really familiar with Bob Dylan, you know his album, Bringing It All Back Home. If you look on the back cover, there's a woman massaging his scalp. That's Barbara Rubin. And she urged Andy Warhol to come to see an early Velvet Underground concert. So Velvet Underground makes its first record at Scepter Studios. They send that demo tape around. This is what the Columbia Records executive had to say about it. But Verve Records takes them on. A guy named Tom Wilson, who was actually a Harvard graduate, a member of the Young Republicans at Harvard University. He helped Dylan go electric. He signed Sun Ra and Frank Zappa. He made the rock remix of The Sounds of Silence, which is actually what broke Simon and Garfunkel and made them famous. So he heard something in the Velvet Underground that he wanted to make sure got out to people. So on their first record that Verve released, there were a couple of quotes, and this is one of them. Variety magazine wrote, "A 3-ring psychosis that assaults the senses with the sights and sounds with a total environment syndrome. Discordant music, throbbing cadences, pulsating tempo." That was one of the nice reviews. And we do, when Cantor J plays and sings, It's Sweetly. But Velvet Underground had this edge, as the Cantor mentioned before, this primal murky thing that we can't really reproduce here in the sanctuary. So here's a minute of a song from their first record called I'm Waiting for the Man, a song about waiting for a drug dealer. So that's a little bit of the sound of the Velvet Underground, and you might hear if you listen closely, the sort of chunky piano chords of Fats Domino in that song. This is also a quote from that album on the record cover there, and perhaps the only real comparison to Reed writing about LGBTQ themes, about violence and drug abuse. Even the protest folk singers didn't go there. The comparison is really to Kurt Weill and the songs of the Weimar Republic. So here's another song from the first record of Velvet Underground.
Sunday morning brings the dawning. It's just a restless feeling by my side.
Here's a quote from Lou Reed on the songs that he wrote. Sunday Morning is a beautiful song, but you may have noticed that in the lyrics it speaks of a kind of restlessness and paranoia when it says, "Watch out, the world's behind you." And Reed said, it's got nothing to do with me. Look, I write songs I don't agree with. It has to do with a movie I saw or somebody I read about in the paper or met at a party. I put them in a song and act them out. So Reed was a storyteller, a chronicler of New York City, and particularly its gay life underground, criminal behavior. When he wrote songs like "I'm Waiting for the Man" or "Heroin," he wasn't glorifying drugs. He talked about the dark side of addiction in content that wasn't typical in pop songs in the 1960s. So his second great mentor was Andy Warhol. I mentioned that Barbara Rubin brought him to a concert, a club show at a club called Cafe Bazaar in Greenwich Village. And actually the night that Warhol came was a particularly contentious performance. At the end of one of their sets, the Velvet Underground played one of the songs from their first record that was, let's say, not their prettiest tune. It was called the Black Angels Death Song. And the owner of the club came up and said, "If you want to work here, never ever play that song again." Naturally enough, when their second set started and Andy Warhol was there, they opened with the Black Angels Death Song. So Warhol was a true enthusiast about rock and roll. He was looking for a band to play at some of what was called happenings in those days, and he offers to manage the Velvet Underground in exchange for a 25% commission. He buys them new instruments and puts them into a program which he calls the Exploding Plastic Inevitable, which at the time didn't mean anything and now somehow seems appropriate. So Warhol gives Reed a gift of an open environment where no subject was off limits. And he also gives him an ambition and a work ethic to write and work every day, constantly. And besides that, there were copious amphetamines that increased the amount of work that anyone could do. So it was during this time period that Reed writes a lot of the songs that are on their second album, including a song called Lady Godiva's Operation, which is about a trans person's lobotomy. So, speaking to the way things were not accepted in those days and how different it would become in our day. So the performances really were shocking. The album comes out and sales are very low. Eventually, Rolling Stone will put it at the number 12 spot on the 500 greatest rock and roll records of all time. But at its time, it only sold about 30,000 copies, which when you think about bands like the Beatles selling millions of albums, 30,000 is nothing. The great rock and roll musician, founder of the band Roxy Music, a producer of many bands like Devo and Talking Heads, Brian Eno, coined the famous phrase about this record, that the Velvet Underground only sold 30,000 copies, but everyone who bought one of those 30,000 copies started a band. And among the musicians who are most directly influenced, say, by Lou Reed, here's a handful of them, and there are many, many more. But up in the left corner, Patti Smith again, who you heard introducing him to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. David Bowie heard that first album in a hotel room alone at night and played it over and over and had his real artistic breakthrough as a singer and writer and performer. The two bands on the lower right, that's REM from Athens, Georgia. On the bottom left, that is Radiohead. Iggy Pop there in the middle, and up in the right-hand corner, Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen met Lou Reed before he ever went into a recording studio to put poetry to music. And in fact, was very surprised by the fact that Lou Reed had a copy of his book of poetry, Flowers for Hitler, and asked Leonard Cohen to sign it. So, as I mentioned before, Dylan may have gotten some inspiration to go electric from seeing Lou Reed. Leonard Cohen certainly got inspiration from Lou Reed. It's fascinating to think we might not have had the same careers from either of these two without Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. So, Their next two records peaked at, they hit the top 100, peaking at 197 and 199. So without Velvet Underground, we might never have heard of many of these folks. So from their fourth album, we have this song that never charted for the Velvet Underground, Sweet Jane.
Standing on the corner, suitcase in my hand. Jackson's car says to Jane, who's in her vest, me, babe, I'm in a rock and roll band. Riding in the Studs Bearcat, Jim, those were different times. And the poets studied all their rules of verse. Ladies, they all rolled their eyes. Sweet Jane, sweet Jane, oh, sweet Jane. Now Jack, he's a banker, and Jane, she is a clerk. And both of them are saving up their money when they come home from work. Ooh, sitting by the fire, the radio plays classical music, March of the Wooden Soldiers, and you can hear Jack say, Sweet Jane, oh, sweet Jane, oh, sweet Jane. Some people like to go out dancing, and other people, they got to work. And there's always some evil mothers that'll tell you that life is just dirt, and that women really never faint, and villains always blink their eyes, and children are the only ones who blush, 'cause life is just to die. But anyone who ever has a heart, he wouldn't turn around and break it. Anyone who ever played a part, he wouldn't turn around and hate it. Sweet Jane, sweet Jane, heavenly wine and roses seem to whisper to her when she smiles. Heavenly wine and roses seem to whisper to her when he smiles. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Sweet Jane, sweet Jane, sweet Jane, sweet Jane, sweet Jane, sweet
Jay, you nailed it. Who is Sweet Jane? No one knows. There were many relationships and 3 marriages in Lou's life. He always seemed to be attracted to the female form. In the center of this slide is pre-op trans woman Candy Darling, one of his Warhol connections. Certainly the source of Lou's song Candy Says. And then down in the left-hand corner is Nico, a German model who Andy Warhol added to the band. Some say Sweet Jane is for her. Perhaps Rachel Humphreys, who's up in the top left-hand corner, a trans woman. She and Lou never married, but they did have a wedding cake, which you can see in that picture. And then 3 legal wives, Betty Kronstadt, who's on the left next to Lou, and then in the bottom right-hand corner, Sylvia Morales, and the upper corner, Laurie Anderson, who deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame herself, is his longest relationship. They were together until his death. After the Velvet Underground records, 4 of them, they're dropped by their record label, and Lou starts his solo career. After making so many other people's careers, he thought that maybe it was time for him to make a little something. So you can see his quote, "I mimic me probably better than anybody. So if everybody else is making money ripping me off, I figured maybe I better get in on it. Why not? I created Lou Reed. I have nothing even faintly in common with that guy. But I can play him well, really well." And so he went out and had his recording career as a solo artist. And from his first, I think his first solo record, we get this song, "Perfect Day," which is almost certainly for the woman the trans woman Rachel Humphreys.
Just a perfect day. Drink sangria in the park. And then later when it gets dark, we go home. Just a perfect day. Feed animals in the zoo. Then later a movie too, and then home. Oh, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you. Oh, such a perfect day. You just keep me hanging on. Just keep me hanging on. Just a perfect day. Problems all left alone. Weekenders on our own. It's such fun. Just a perfect day. You made me forget myself. I thought I was someone else, someone good. Oh, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you. Oh, such a perfect day. You just keep me hanging on. Keep me hanging on. You're gonna reap just what you've sown. You're gonna reap all that you've sown. You're gonna reap all you sow. You're gonna reap all you sow.
A little callback here to the poet Delmore Schwartz, who died in 1966. There's actually a beautiful poem by Schwartz in our Siddur that we read on festivals. At his funeral, his sister eulogized him, saying that his Jewishness was not in his dishes or in going to services, it was his Jewish heart. And I think you can say the same thing about Lou Reed. There are not a lot of Jewish references in his music, but you can feel a Jewish heart beating within them. So, a song from one of his records, The Blue Mask, reminds us of what Schwartz told him back when he was a student at Syracuse University, that he would haunt him if he didn't write for himself and not for others. This is a song called My House.
Image of the poets in the breeze, Canadian geese flying high above the trees. A mist is hanging gently on the lake. My house is very beautiful at night. My friend, my teacher occupies a spare room. He's dead, at peace at last, the wandering Jew. Other friends have put stones on his grave. He was the first great man that I had ever met. Sylvia and I got out our Ouija board to dial the spirit across the room it soared. We were happy and amazed at what we saw. Blazing stood the proud and regal name, Delmore. Delmore, I missed all your funny ways. I missed your jokes and the brilliant things you said. My Daedalus to your bloom was such a perfect wit, and to find you in my house makes things perfect. I really got a lucky life. My riding, my motorcycle, and my wife. And to top it all off, the spirit of pure poetry is living in this stone and wood house with me. Oh, the image of the poets in the breeze. Canadian geese are flying high above the trees. A mist is hanging gently on the lake. Our house is very beautiful at night. Our house is very beautiful at night. Our house is beautiful at night. Our house is very beautiful at night.
A song that reminds us that those we love are never really gone. They're with us in our homes, in our hearts, in our minds. His other great mentor was Andy Warhol, who also, of course, died too young. Complications related going all the way back to an attempt to murder him in 1966. After Warhol dies, Reed reunites briefly with his bandmate from the Velvet Underground, who's in the right-hand side of that picture, John Cale, back in the days when they were in Velvet Underground together. John Cale was a classically trained musician, but really trained in the 20th century style of classical music. So if you go back and listen to that first Velvet Underground record, he's the one who's responsible for things like the sound of a shopping cart rolling into a china cabinet. And he also did things like put paper clips on the wires of the piano so that they would make a different kind of sound when you hit the keys. So very experimental in his work during the Velvet Underground and after. They got together in 1990 after Andy Warhol died, and they recorded an album called Songs for Drella, short for Cinderella, which was one of Andy Warhol's nicknames. And this is a song that they wrote together about Andy Warhol and his biography.
When you're growing up in a small town, when you're growing up in a small town, when you're growing up in a small town, you say, no one famous ever came from here. When you're growing up in a small town, when you're having a nervous breakdown, and you think that you'll never escape it, yourself or the place that you live. Where did Picasso come from? There's no Michelangelo coming from Pittsburgh. If art is the tip of the iceberg, then I'm the part that's sinking below. When you're growing up in a small town, bad skin, bad eyes, gay and fatty, people look at you funny. When you're in a small town. My father worked in construction. It's not something for which I'm suited. Oh, what's something for which you're suited? Getting out of here. I hate being odd in a small town. They stare, let them stare in New York City at this pink-eyed painted albino. How far can my fantasies go? I'm no Dally coming from Pittsburgh, no adorable lisping Capote, my hero. Oh, do you think I could meet him? I'd camp out in front of his door. There's only one good thing about a small town, only one good use for a small town. There's only one good thing about a small town, you know that you want to get out. When you're growing up in a small town, you know you'll grow down in a small town. There's only one good use for a small town. You hate it. And you know you'll have to leave.
The song has a lot of very true details about Andy Warhol and his move to New York City. He indeed wanted nothing more than to meet Truman Capote when he got there. Reed wrote about the darkness in the world, but the world kept getting darker. The assassinations of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, the shooting of Andy Warhol at the factory in New York City were deeply embedded in Reed's outlook. Delmore Schwartz, that's him towards the end of his life in the left-hand corner of that slide, took the death of Kennedy very deeply and personally. He believed that Kennedy would save the world. And after the assassination in 1963, Delmore Schwartz went on a 3-year bender that ended with his heart attack at the age of 52 in the Chelsea Hotel in New York City. It was 3 days before anybody recognized who it was that had died there. So Reed blamed Delmore's death on the assassination of John Kennedy as well. And he wrote a song called The Day John Kennedy Died that was about the death of Kennedy and of his mentor Delmore Schwartz. Reed was still a student at Syracuse in 1963 studying with Schwartz when he heard the news, and I'm sure many of you have heard the saying that everyone remembers exactly where they were when they heard the story, when they heard that John Kennedy had been shot and died. Reed says the song is true. It's exactly how he heard the news on the day John Kennedy died.
Oh, the day John Kennedy died. dreamed I was the president of these United States. I dreamed I replaced ignorance, stupidity, and hate. I dreamed the perfect union and a perfect law undenied. Most of all, I dreamed I forgot the day John Kennedy died. Oh, the day John Kennedy died. I dreamed that I could do the job that others hadn't done. I dreamed that I was uncorrupt and fair to everyone. I dreamed I wasn't gross or base, a criminal on the take. And most of all, I dreamed I forgot the day John Kennedy died. Oh, the day John Kennedy died. Oh, the day John Kennedy died. I remember where I was that day. I was upstate in a bar. A team from the university was playing football on TV. Then the screen went dead, and the announcer said, "There's been a tragedy. There are unconfirmed reports. The president's been shot, and he may be dead or dying." So the talking stopped, and someone shouted, "What?" And I ran out to the street. People were gathered everywhere saying, "Did you hear what they just said on TV?" And then a guy in a Porsche with his radio, he hit his horn and told us all the news. He said, "The president's dead. He's been shot twice in the head in Dallas, and they don't know by whom." The day John Kennedy died. The day John Kennedy died. I dreamed I was the president of these United States. I dreamed I was young and smart, and it was not a waste. I dreamed that there was a point to life and to the human race. I dreamed that I could somehow comprehend that someone shot him in the face. Oh, the day John Kennedy died. Oh, the day John Kennedy died.
Lou Reed wrote his own kind of protest music. It came from deep in his Jewish heart. It was centered in his New York home. When I lived in New York City in the 1980s, I saw Lou Reed several times on the Lower East Side. One time I remember standing in line with him at Ratner's Kosher Dairy Restaurant when I had the courage to actually tell him how much his music meant to me. And then another time, probably just a month later, I was at Russ and Daughters, which is also on the Lower East Side, a place to buy lox and smoked fish. I was buying an unconscionably large order of lox and sable, and Lou Reed was there, and he actually asked me what I was going to do with all of that. And it was because there was a special event that morning. We were cleaning up the one of the synagogues that had been closed, its sanctuary had been closed, the Eldridge Street Synagogue in New York City. And we had a cleanup crew coming in that day to look at the sanctuary for the first time in decades. And so, of course, there had to be lox and bagels. So I was tasked with picking up the lox. And I told Lou Reed about it. He said, "Well, that sounds really cool. Maybe I'll drop by." He didn't, but it was a very nice encounter. He was unfailingly kind and polite when I saw him. And speaking of his protest music, this is something that he said in an interview talking about the first President Bush in January of 1989, around the time his solo record called New York came out. What's he been in, a week? And already you've got all these fundamentalists and right-wing fascists ready to march on Washington and undo the abortion decision, which is 16 years old now, I think. Unbelievable. They really want to roll the clock back. The Reagan legacy is a $3 trillion debt and a war he wages against people who can't fight back. Women, children, the poor, people who are sick, people who are dying of AIDS. The attitude of someone like Bush on AIDS is somewhere along the lines of, well, they deserve it. So you can see that he has a heart that would probably fit in pretty well around here and put it into some of his music. Here's a song from that record, New York, called Busload of Faith.
You can't depend on your family. You can't depend on your friends. You can't depend on the beginning. You can't depend on an end. You can't depend on intelligence. Oh, you can't depend on God. You can only depend on one thing, my friend. You need a busload of faith to get by. 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 You can't depend on the worst always happening. You can't depend on a murderer's drive. You can bet that if he rapes somebody, there'll be no trouble having a child. You can bet that if she aborts it, pro-lifers will attack her with rage. You can't depend on the worst always happening. You need a busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by. Whoa, busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by, by. Busload of faith to get by. You can't depend on the goodly hearted. The goodly hearted made lampshades and soap. You can't depend on the sacrament. No Father, no Holy Ghost. You can't depend on any churches unless there's real estate that you want to buy. You can't depend on a lot of things because you need a busload of faith to get by. 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 You can't depend on no miracles. You can't depend on the air. You can't depend on a wise man. You can't find them because they're not there. You can't depend on cruelty. You can depend on crudity of thought and sound. You can't depend on the worst always happening. You need a busload of faith to get by. Oh, busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by. Busload of faith to get by.
So I think you can see sparks of Jewish faith in his songs. One here, of course, about the goodly-hearted people making lampshades and soap out of our people. One in a song we sang earlier about putting stones on Delmore's grave. But it's really in his righteousness that you hear his Jewish heart beating. When, after Patti Smith inducted him into the Hall of Fame, Laurie Anderson had the honor of accepting that honor for him posthumously. It was his second entrance into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you all. It's wonderful to be here in Cleveland, and Lou would have loved this. He's here with his heroes, Otis and Dion. He's here with B.B. King, who he loved and admired, Aretha, who he saw so many times, his dear friend, Doc Pomus, who taught him so much, and who was the you he sang to in his beautiful record, Magic and Lost. Of course, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the place where names of great musicians become completely magic words. Buddy Holly, Little Richard, the Coasters. Names become the groove, and they evoke whole worlds. And now Lou Reed is one of these magic words.
Reed saw how tough the world could be. His songs were groundbreaking in their sound and their subject matter. His best-known songs are still subversive and still influence musicians and listeners today. This song is recognizable to rock fans from the first few notes.
Janko quit the West Side ACA, went cross town and joined YMCA. Soon bacon and pork he began to enjoy. Took up his yarmulke, it was a guy. I said, hey Janko, take a walk on the kosher side. I said, hey Nudnik, take a walk down Fairfax. And the members of it has to go.
Well, in case you didn't realize, that was a parody version by Gefilte Joe and the Fish. Here's the real first verse from a live performance. If you want to hear the rest of that one, you'll have to play it on your own. But what Lou Reed did is what it says in this quote. I wanted to take rock and roll and make it for adults, with subject matter for adults, written so adults like myself could listen to it. That is what he did. It's why Cantor J and I love and respect him. And so I hope you've come to love him a little bit more today as well. It's been our honor to present Lou Reed, His Jewish Hearts.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. All right, and how about another round of applause for Rabbi Ike? And thanks to Vanessa, as always, for organizing and streaming. I think we got the sound to work. Good, good. And to Stacy and the whole Macomb team who helped make the bagels possible. And our sponsors of our bagel breakfast. And I guess everyone has some homework. Go out and listen to a little Lou Reed today. And but maybe put the volume a little low to start off, okay? Because it's pretty edgy music. And so I want to also give a shout out. Susan Benjamin is here. And that's right. And so is Allie. Allie's here too. But the reason why I give a shout out to Susan is we are working on another musical biography in the spirit of this presentation and presentations past. And the subject of our presentation will be Billy Joel. Billy Joel. Okay, so stay tuned on the emails for the scheduling of that. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone.